thank you all for being here, and I want to really echo what Gita began with. This is a time really in which when you leave this hall, that you have to go and do something about what you've heard and what you've seen, whether it's on CCR's website, where there's actions or others. It's really a time, a serious time, when it's gone on too long, a time of action. I was really pleased to have with us, although very painfully so, Diana Ortiz. And what I know we all weep when we hear Diana, but what her presence here really signifies to me is what's absent in the entire 7 or 8 years where this country has run an open and notorious torture program. And that's the absence of the survivors of that program. And I think what a difference it would make in this country if we could have the mothers of Guantanamo outside the White House every single day, instead of, it's wonderful to have people in the justice, but the reason this torture debate, if you want to call it that, is so foolishly ignorant and stupid is because it's a debate among people who are not the survivors of torture. Because I know, as you can see, it's not easy for her to go back through what happened to her and to talk about it, but it's really important for all of us. So thank you, Diana. Diana's case also is the Guatemala torture in the 80s. It also tells us really what Andy was saying. When you hear this debate about we need torture to get information, we don't need torture. I mean, they do need torture to get the false information they used to get us into the Iraq War, but that's a different issue. But when you talk about getting information and this debate about it, what the Guatemala cases illustrate really vividly, and what Diana's case in particular, is that torture is not about information. It's about domination and oppression. And it's about domination and oppression, whether it's in Guatemala, Afghanistan, or Iraq, and domination and oppression in our police precincts in the United States or in our prisons in the United States. So while, yes, we have to call to abolish torture, to prosecute the last set of the torture conspirators who have just left office, it's absolutely necessary. That the causes of torture, and torture itself is not some slogan to simply say abolish torture. We have to actually ultimately get rid of the causes and the system that sets up a government that tortures people not only in this country, but all over the world. The other impression I had in listening, of course, you heard Gita, and she mentioned the suicide at Guantanamo that took place yesterday. And you know, it just struck me in a way, it really, when I thought about this man who was 31 years old, been there for 7 years, weighed at one point 87 pounds because he was on a hunger strike, finally, somehow figuring out how to take his own life. It's just devastating. And it's devastating to understand now that this is no longer Bush's Guantanamo. This is President Barack Obama's Guantanamo. That's on President Barack Obama's hands. It's not any longer Bush's hands. And when we talk about him, you know, there's a big case that's always talked about the Uyghurs. The Uyghurs are the 17 men at Guantanamo from Western China. And they've been declared innocent even by this government and the last government. And they shouldn't be at Guantanamo at all. And the Bush administration kept them there day after day. The courts ordered them released. First the Bush administration and then the Barack Obama administration said he would not parole them into the country, which he could do. So they have now been there 4 months, innocent men under this current administration. We fight in this country to get people out of prison when they're down at what we used to call the Tombs, but 100 Center Street, for one night. And And these men, day after day, week after week, Obama, with a stroke of the pen, could bring them into Washington, where they would be living with other Uyghur families, and he hasn't done it. So again, I want to say, the innocent and the others at Guantanamo are now really in Barack Obama's hands, and it is his Guantanamo.
Bravo.
Back in the days when George Bush was president, we at the Center took very, very strong positions on the issues we've been talking about tonight. We took strong positions that Guantanamo must be closed. And by closed, I don't just mean physically closed, but I mean getting rid of the policies, the practices, and the unlawfulness that underlies what Guantanamo is. We said that detainees had to either be charged in court or repatriated to their countries. No third way, no preventive detention. We said that those to be tried, whatever the number, whether it's 10 or 15, it's a small number of the 240 remaining, had to be tried in federal courts. No military commissions. We said that torture had to be ended completely, no exceptions, no matter what. We said that those officials in this government responsible for torture had to be investigated and prosecuted by a special prosecutor. Those were 5 clear demands that progressives were making, lawyers even representing the Guantanamo detainees were making, many of us were making in the Bush administration. The principles underlying those demands, they aren't democratic principles, they aren't Republican principles. They're fundamental principles, and they don't change just because the Democrats are in office and not the Republicans. I bring this up now really in the context of the speech that President Obama made and was referred to at the National Archives on May 21st. I can tell you this, we at CCR did not find the President's position in that speech acceptable, and we said so. In fact, the day before the meeting, President Obama did something that President Bush would never have done. He invited the Center for Constitutional Rights and our executive director and a number of other human rights groups to meet with him the day before he gave the speech. Vince Warren went down, our executive director at the Center, for the Center, and he got a glimpse of what the President was going to say the next day in his speech. And here is how he left the meeting in a statement Vince said. I came out of the meeting deeply disappointed in the direction that the administration is taking, and I don't see meaningful differences between these detention policies and those erected by President Bush. So there you have it. The next day at CCR, we're sitting around the room and watching the speech at the National Archives. And there's President Obama, a very effective speaker. National Archives, the place where the Constitution is housed, the Bill of Rights is housed. And President Obama effectively talked about those 2 founding documents and talked about their meaning and how important they were. It was an extremely compelling beginning to the speech. He then proposed for Guantanamo, torture, and other issues like that, state secrecy, solutions that were not very different from those of President Bush's. He added some